The unforgiving Arizona sun beat down on Ethan Vance's isolated ranch, a relentless golden hammer on the red earth. Dust, a permanent fixture in the air, coated everything, clinging to the weathered wood of his cabin and the calloused hands. That guided his horse. Ethan was a man carved from the very landscape he inhabited, tough, silent, and resilient. His life was a monotonous rhythm of tending to cattle and battling the elements, a solitary existence broken only by the occasional trip to the nearest dusty town. It was on one of his routine patrols, checking fence lines on the far reaches of his property, that he stumbled upon a scene that would irrevocably alter the course of his life. A overturned wagon, splintered and abandoned, lay baking in the midday heat, fresh tracks leading away into the brush, hinting at a recent violent encounter. His heart, usually as steady as the desert floor, quickened as he dismounted, his hand instinctively resting on the pistol at his hip. As he surveyed the wreckage, a faint whimper drew his attention to a gnarled mesquite tree. There, chained to a broken wagon spoke, was a young woman. Her clothes were torn, her face streaked with dirt and tears, and her eyes, though clouded with fear, held a fierce, desperate flicker of life. Sarah, as he would soon learn, was visibly pregnant, her condition only emphasizing her extreme vulnerability in this harsh wilderness. The sight of her, so utterly at the mercy of her captors and the elements, stirred something deep within Ethan, a powerful, innate sense of justice that transcended his usual stoicism. He moved with a quiet urgency, his boots crunching on the dry earth as he approached her cautiously. The rusty shackles binding her wrists and ankles seemed an anachronism in this land of rough freedom, a cruel testament to the brutality she had endured. Without a word, Ethan knelt, his weathered fingers working to pry open the cold iron. The clinking of the chains as they finally fell away echoed in the vast silence of the desert, a sound of liberation that was almost sacred. Sarah, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief, could only manage a choked whisper of thanks. Her gratitude was a silent plea, a desperate hope for salvation. Ethan, observing her fragile state and the advanced stage of her pregnancy, understood instantly that leaving her there was not an option. The dangers of the desert, outlaws, wild animals, and the sheer unforgiving nature of the landscape were too great. A silent vow formed in his mind. She would not be left to perish. He helped her gently onto his horse, supporting her as they began the slow journey back to his ranch, the setting sun painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and the palpable weight of an unexpected shared destiny. Ethan, accustomed to the quiet companionship of his horse and the wind, felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility settle upon him. He knew that bringing a pregnant woman found in such circumstances to his isolated ranch would raise eyebrows, even in a land where conventional norms often bent to necessity. But the immediate need to protect her, to offer her shelter and safety, superseded any concerns about appearances. As the first stars began to prick holes in the darkening sky, a profound and life-altering decision began to take shape in his mind. Spurred by compassion and the urgent reality of their situation, back at the ranch, the stark simplicity of Ethan's cabin offered a fragile sanctuary from the vast, unforgiving expanse outside. Sarah, her body aching and her mind reeling, was settled by the crackling fireplace, the only source of warmth and light in the rapidly cooling evening. The familiar sounds of the ranch, the lowing of cattle in the distance, the creak of the wind vane, seemed to amplify the unfamiliar presence of another human being in Ethan's usually solitary world. As darkness fully enveloped the desert, bringing with it a chill that seeped into bones, the true urgency of their predicament became undeniable. Sarah, her voice still hoarse and hesitant, finally began to recount fragments of her ordeal, revealing a chilling tale of flight from a dangerous and relentless past, from men who sought to reclaim what they believed was theirs, including her. And the life growing within her. The imminent threat of these pursuers, combined with the social stigma surrounding an unattached, pregnant woman in the harsh realities of the Old West, forced Ethan to confront an immediate drastic solution. He knew that simply offering her shelter wouldn't be enough. Her safety, and that of her unborn child, demanded a more permanent, legally recognized bond. It was a proposal born not of love or romance, but of desperate pragmatism and a profound sense of duty. A marriage of convenience, he explained, would afford her protection under his name, legitimizing her presence and providing a barrier against those who hunted her. The idea, though shocking in its suddenness, resonated with a logical necessity. In the stark world they inhabited, it was a lifeline offered in the face of insurmountable odds. With the stars now blazing, like diamonds in the inky blackness above, Ethan dispatched a rider to fetch Sheriff Brody, a gruff but fair man from a neighboring town who was known for his practical approach to the law. Hours later, Brody arrived, his face etched with concern as he took in the scene. Under the vast, silent canvas of the desert sky, illuminated by the flickering glow of a lantern and the distant silver light of the moon, a makeshift ceremony took place. There were no elaborate vows, no guests, no celebratory feast, only the somber, resonant words of the sheriff, binding two strangers in a union forged by necessity. Sarah, her heart a tumultuous mix of fear and an unexpected sense of gratitude, whispered her agreement, her hand trembling slightly as it met Ethan's. Gravity of the moment hung heavy in the cool night air. It was a commitment made not by passion, but by a shared understanding of survival, a silent promise of mutual protection in a world that offered little mercy. The simple act transformed them from strangers to husband and wife, albeit in a union born of circumstance. As the sheriff departed, leaving them alone once more, the weight of their new reality settled over them. The creak of the old wooden floorboards and the soft glow of the fire were the only witnesses to this unlikely beginning, a testament to the unpredictable twists of fate in the wild frontier. They were bound, not by affection, but by a shared vulnerability and a desperate hope for a future free from the shadows of the past. The days following their impromptu wedding unfolded with a quiet intensity, a slow, deliberate dance of two strangers learning to navigate the unfamiliar contours of a shared life. The rhythm of the ranch, usually dictated by Ethan's solitary routine, now had to accommodate Sarah's presence and her delicate condition. Life on the frontier was unforgiving, demanding constant physical exertion, but Sarah, despite her obvious fragility, refused to be a burden. She insisted on helping with lighter chores, mending clothes, preparing simple meals, her movements slow but determined. Each small act of contribution was a silent testament to her gratitude and her fierce desire to earn her place, to prove her worth beyond the circumstances of her arrival. Ethan, a man of actions rather than words, observed her quietly, a flicker of respect growing in his usually guarded eyes. He never pressed her about her past, understanding implicitly that it was a wound too fresh to be prodded. Instead, he focused on the practicalities of her well-being, ensuring she had enough food, water, and rest. Small, almost imperceptible gestures began to bridge the chasm between them. A glass of water placed beside her when she seemed parched. A mended chair suddenly appearing by the fireplace, his steady gaze when she stumbled. These quiet acts of consideration, devoid of any romantic overtures, slowly began to chip away at Sarah's deep-seated fear and mistrust. The sheer consistency of his presence, his quiet strength, became a comforting anchor in a world that had so recently been adrift with terror. Their conversations, initially sparse and awkward, gradually began to lengthen, filled with hesitant questions about the ranch, the weather, and the challenging realities of life in the Old West, Sarah found herself sharing small details about her simpler upbringing, stories devoid of the recent trauma that still clung to her. Ethan, in turn, spoke of the land, the unpredictable seasons, and the enduring struggle to carve out a living from the unforgiving earth. These exchanges, though not deeply personal, served as threads, weaving a nascent connection between them. The vast, isolated expanse of the ranch, which had once seemed so daunting, paradoxically began to foster a unique intimacy, a silent understanding built on shared hardship and mutual resilience. One sweltering afternoon, Old Man Hemlock, a neighboring rancher whose weathered face bore the marks of 100 suns, rode up to the cabin with a sack of fresh vegetables and a few bolts of fabric. His visit, seemingly casual, was an unspoken gesture of community support, a tacit acknowledgment of Ethan's new circumstances. Sarah, witnessing this quiet act of kindness, felt a warmth spread through her. It was a reminder that even in this wild and untamed land, there were pockets of humanity and solidarity. This unexpected affirmation, coupled with Ethan's unwavering, quiet strength, began to plant seeds of a fragile but profound trust in her heart. The barren landscape of their forced union was slowly, almost imperceptibly, transforming into fertile ground for a new, unexpected kind of bond. Just as a fragile sense of routine and security began to settle over the ranch, the tranquility was shattered by a chilling reminder of Sarah's past. A rider, galloping hard, brought word from Sheriff Brody, men matching the description of Sarah's pursuers had been seen in the vicinity, asking questions, their presence a menacing cloud on the horizon. The news sent a cold shiver down Sarah's spine, her hard-won peace instantly dissolving into raw fear. Her pregnancy was in its final, most vulnerable stages, every movement a struggle, and the thought of facing her tormentors again with her unborn child was almost unbearable. Ethan, his face grim, moved with a decisive urgency, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The ranch, once a sanctuary, now felt like a fortress under siege. The confrontation came swiftly, under the relentless glare of the midday sun. Small group of heavily armed men, their faces grim and their intentions clear, rode onto Ethan's property. Their leader, a brutish man with cold, unyielding eyes, demanded Sarah's return, their voices cutting through the dry air like knives. Ethan, standing firm in front of his cabin, a shotgun held resolutely in his hands, refused. The tension was a palpable force, thick enough to choke on, as words quickly escalated into threats. The air crackled with the promise of violence, transforming the quiet ranch into a volatile battlefield. This was no longer just about protecting a woman. It was about defending his home, his newfound family, and the sanctity of the life he was trying to build. The initial exchange of gunfire was deafening, the sharp cracks echoing across the vast emptiness of the desert. Ethan fought with a fierce, almost desperate determination, his every move fueled by the need to protect Sarah and the fragile life within her. He was outnumbered, but his knowledge of the terrain, his practiced aim, and his sheer will to defend what was now his gave him an advantage. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah, despite her advanced state, showed a surprising display of courage. She wasn't simply a victim. She was a fighter, her eyes burning with a resolve that matched Ethan's. She helped where she could, handing him extra ammunition, her presence a silent, powerful support that bolstered his resolve. Just as the odds seemed to tilt dangerously against Ethan, a contingent of local ranchers, including Old Man Hemlock, rode in, drawn by the sound of the gunfight. Their arrival, a testament to the unspoken code of mutual aid in the frontier, turned the tide. The combined force of Ethan and his neighbors was enough to repel the attackers, who, after sustaining casualties, retreated, leaving behind the dust of their defeat and the chilling reminder of their threat. The fight was brutal, a stark display of the Old West's harsh realities, leaving the ranch scarred but safe. The immediate danger had passed, but the physical and emotional toll was immense, pushing Sarah into a state of exhaustion, her body now responding to the immense stress she had endured. The fight for survival, however, had also forged an unbreakable bond between them, solidifying their unlikely alliance into a true partnership. The immediate aftermath of the violent confrontation left the ranch a scene of disarray, but the greater challenge had just begun. Sarah, physically and emotionally drained from the ordeal, almost immediately went into labor. The relentless stress, the fear, and the sheer effort of enduring the attack had pushed her body to its limits. Ethan, still covered in dust and sweat from the gunfight, transitioned seamlessly from defender to caregiver, his rugged hands now gently supporting Sarah as her contractions began. The urgency was palpable, the need to bring new life into the world eclipsing the recent violence. A local midwife, a woman with kind eyes and steady hands, arrived just in time, summoned by a frantic rider, her calm presence a balm in the storm. Labor was long and arduous, a testament to Sarah's incredible resilience. Every cry, every strained breath echoed in the small cabin, a symphony of pain and hope. Ethan remained steadfastly by her side, his usual stoicism replaced by an open vulnerability. He held her hand, wiped the sweat from her brow, his quiet encouragement a constant source of strength. In those intense hours, the last remnants of their initial awkwardness dissolved, replaced by a profound, wordless understanding. This was no longer a marriage of convenience. It was a partnership forged in the crucible of shared adversity, a bond deepened by the raw, undeniable miracle unfolding before them. As dawn began to paint the eastern sky with soft hues of pink and gold, a new sound filled the cabin, the clear, strong cry of a newborn. It was a sound of life, of triumph, and of an incredibly potent new beginning. Sarah, exhausted but radiant, looked at her baby, then up at Ethan, her eyes filled with a gratitude that transcended words. In that moment, the solitary rancher and the captive bride were transformed into something entirely new, a family. The child, a small, perfect embodiment of their shared struggle and survival, was a symbol of hope blooming in the harsh desert landscape. The future remained uncertain, as life in the Old West always was, but they would face it together. The shadows of Sarah's past had been fought off, and while they might linger, they no longer defined her. Ethan, who had once lived a life of quiet solitude, now had a purpose far grander than simply tending to his cattle. As they stood on the porch of the cabin, the sun climbing higher in the sky, the vast, unending horizon stretched before them. It was a landscape of challenges, but also of infinite possibilities. With their child nestled safely between them, Ethan and Sarah looked out at the expanse, two unlikely souls united by fate, ready to build a life brick by brick under the expansive, promise-filled sky of the American West. Their journey was far from over, but a new horizon had dawned, filled with the quiet, enduring hope of a truly shared future.